who was named Krishna Chaitanya, was a monk who, over 500 years ago, walked barefoot from town to town and taught the principles that had been passed down over millennia to people in towns, villages, and even cities. He met great scholars, politicians, he met kings, and he taught each one of them these sets of principles that they could use in their lives. He didn't insist that anyone change their position. In fact, he said it's the most advantageous to stay in whatever position you're now, but apply the principles to your life. And that's another sanguine aspect, is that if you're in a particular situation in life and you're asked to radically change, it may be difficult because we have momentum, we're set in our ways. But when we can apply something locally in the situation we're in now, it gives us immediate access. That's one of the teachings in the Bhagavad-gītā that Kṛṣṇa gives. Bhagavad-gītā, of course, is a very famous text that gives the teachings of karma and yoga and transmigration, talks how this body's changing, but we, the consciousness, never change. Talks about how to work in the world in such a way that you don't become entangled and so forth. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took these principles and made them available to all of us. And so we're still passing along these principles. They can be applied to anyone. And in the Bhagavad-gītā, Kṛṣṇa, who taught these principles over 5,000 years ago, said that by applying them, you'll experience directly for yourself the meaning of your life, and you'll have a vision of what's most important. You'll be able to connect, that is, connect with your original source, and you'll experience it for yourself. Just like when the sun comes up, you don't need somebody to tell you it. The sun has come up because you can see it for yourself. So Krishna says that it's a direct experience and you'll be moved by it by following these basic principles. Of course, there are so many ideas presented in the ancient wisdom literatures, but we've picked a few for this next series that are extremely helpful and universal, and hopefully they will be effective in your life also. And before we go into them, let's just start by getting centered, and we can have a short session of a guided meditation. So I'm going to put on a drone in the key of C so that we have some background. Just for a moment, sit up slightly straighter than you were a second ago, and try closing your eyes. And bring your attention to your breath. And let go of any of the plans you had brought with you, and any concerns you have for what's going on around you. Let them just go, and for now, be aware of what's inside. In the core of your chest, feel gratitude for something or someone in your life. And become absorbed in that feeling of gratitude. Someone who's been kind to you. Someone who's a gift in your life. Feel it right in your chest, the heart region. And become absorbed there in that feeling of gratitude. You can think of how this body that you have now is going on without your supervision. Breath, heartbeat, digestion, myriad organs working together to give you a platform to interact with the world, and most importantly, to work on your consciousness, which is what the wisdom literatures say is the most important aspects of our lives. And breathe naturally, feel the gratitude. And just for a moment, notice that you're the witness of your body. Bring your attention to your left hand and just feel it in this moment. Bring your attention to your right foot. You may feel the sensation of the nerves there and blood flowing through. Bring your awareness to your thoughts. And notice that you're the witness of them. Just as you would witness clouds moving through the sky changing at different intervals during the day, so similarly your mind is something you can observe. You're not your mind. It runs like a movie. Sometimes we get so absorbed in the movie we forget our real lives. We become so absorbed in our minds we forget ourselves. Come back to the heart region where you've lit a fire of gratitude. And now we're going to say a 2-syllable mantra. Man means mind and tra means to deliver. It's a sacred sound vibration meant to uplift the mind and bring it above the swirling mass of life situations we're dealing with. The 2 syllables R-A-M-A, Rama, were taught tens of thousands of years ago by a sage named Narada to a member of a hill tribe named Kirat, who had become a thief and was feeling lost in his life when he met the sage who taught him a mantra. He became so absorbed in it, did Kirat, that he achieved enlightenment by chanting these 2 syllables. So let's try them. I'll say it, and if you like, you can repeat them behind muted mics. Rama, 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 and notice how the vibration goes through your body and mind. Bring your awareness back to your breath. Wiggle your fingers and toes and open your eyes and come back into the room. too bad to leave behind that drone. It's very calming, isn't it? So in the principles that I mentioned from who we've called also the Golden Monk, he was a monk and he was noted for being very beautiful, not only in the way he looked, but also the way he taught. People would try to follow him everywhere he went to hear his simple teachings because they were so effective. And the first of them, as we've themed this talk, the power of empty, is called akiñcana. And I'll explain the word. It's a concept that comes from one of the ancient wisdom literatures called the Bhagavad-gītā. And in it, there was a queen who was known as a saint. The two don't sound congruent nowadays. Politicians and so forth are the saintly is not the first thing that comes to our mind oftentimes. But she was noted for being saintly. She went through a lot in her life, and she was able to tolerate it and stay steady in the way that she lived. And she gave some teachings that are celebrated around the world. And one of the most famous of them is this principle of akiñcana, when she explained how one may live in a turbulent world and how one may realize that I'm not my body and I'm also not my mind. I'm transcendent. She said in order to enter into a trans-rational state beyond the speculation of the mind, which can only go so far, one needs a trans-rational process. And so she explained, in order to take advantage of a trans-rational process, it's important to be receptive, to be able to receive. And she pointed out that there's bounteous gifts coming to us all the time. It's just very difficult for us to receive them when we're not in the proper consciousness. In fact, the Golden Monk himself had taken a group with him once, and he asked, "Did you bring anything with you?" And they all said, "No, you didn't say to bring anything." He said, "Very good. I want you to see how we're maintained, just moving about the world without anything." And he said, "I also want you to notice how the world is filled with food and money, but people get only what comes to them as their quota. One may try to get more, but there's a way that everyone is getting exactly what they deserve. And it has to do with their receptivity capacity or receptivity quotient." So one of the teachings of the Golden Monk and of Queen Kunti was that we can become better receivers. In fact, this is one of the main teachings of Bhakti Yoga, is that if you notice just how the universe is constructed or how it goes on, you can see in nature that everyone's being fed. I was just sitting out in my garden before this and I was watching various interesting entities, like there are bees, and they were going around getting nectar from flowers. And with the birds, who are somehow living outside and they naturally know how to build their own nests, they have plenty of food. And don't get me started with the squirrels, because somehow or other, those little furry creatures have free coat in the winter and in the spring and all seasons. They have some kind of abundant fruits to eat from. I can observe that from my yard. So the Gold Monk was saying also, everyone gets their quota, but how much are you prepared to receive? And he especially pointed out, as did Queen Kunti, that according to our attitude, according to how we approach the world, that's how much we can receive. So these principles are about how to increase one's capacity to receive and the qualities that we can cultivate will make us more receptive. So, JM, why don't we take a look at a couple of the slides and hopefully that will impress the simple principles that the Golden Monk and Kunti and many other wisdom literatures have put forth as tools through which we can improve our relationship with this abundant world. So a couple of words. You'll notice the first one is kinchana. So it means I have something. And in this case, in the from the Sanskrit word kinchana, when you put an A in front of it, which is pronounced then the word reverses its meaning. So kinchana means I have something. Akiñcana means I have nothing. And this is an attitude. Now, I would like to poll all of you here to see what you think about this concept before I move on, because it's one of the principles to think carefully about our position in this world. And my question to you is, what does it mean to have something? Is there a definition of having? And when you have it, can you keep it? I hope I didn't give away part of my thought process for the definition, but let's hear a couple of comments about having something. First of all, let's start at an easy level. Do you have anything? Anybody have anything in your life? I mean, I could see you have probably a computer because you're watching through here, and clothes or some clothes. I'm not going to answer all the questions. I'm just giving a few suggestions, but let's hear some things in the chat. Oh, that was from the meditation. Okay. Go ahead, everyone. Let's hear if you can.
Nicholas says a body.
Nicholas has a body. Well, that's very insightful. Are you your body or do you have a body? Go ahead, Nicholas. Tell me what you think.
Nicholas says have a body.
Has a body. Okay.
Yeah,
but we really don't. Go ahead, Jay. I'm stealing your service.
We have SG who says we think we have something but really don't.
What does that mean that we don't? If we think we have something but we don't have it, how does that work? You can answer. Yeah, go ahead.
You can unmute and answer, or you can just type in chat, SG. Or
Yeah, that's right. It's a free room. If you have a microphone attached to your computer or anywhere else, we'd love to hear from you. You can also speak up. Okay. Go ahead, JM. Tell us more of the responses. And Rajiv is here. That's good news.
yeah. SG just responded, just the attachment is making us feel that we have something.
Ah, how philosophical. That's very interesting. It's just the attachment and making us feel that we have something. How profound is that? Rajiv, good to see you here. Please tell us.
Likewise, I have lately come to realize that when I use the word have, I use it or think of it not as a possession, but as a responsibility of having a duty towards something. So anything that I have a duty towards or I have a responsibility for, I tend to say I have that. So I have a, for example, family, or I have a pet. So it's more of a responsibility lens as opposed to any other.
Wow. Just in the definition of that, it gave me a sense of relief. The way I interpreted what you said is you have the perspective that whatever duties you have to do. You're doing them more with the sense of, as you said, responsibility, and they're in the realm of service mind that Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad-gītā, that whatever you're using for a higher purpose, like duty and even love and so forth, right?
Correct. So even from, for example, work point of view, when when I say I have a team, this has got nothing to do with the aspect of control uh, or influence or any of that sort of stuff. It is more that I have a responsibility towards, or I have a duty towards a certain um, set of individuals.
Mm. I like that a lot. This is very interesting exercise because when we stop for a moment and think about what it means to have something, it changes our relationship with everything that we have, the duties that we're doing, and so forth. And what you put forth, Rajiv, was very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajiv. Yeah, please, anyone, feel free to unmute and speak. We'd love to hear from you. Meanwhile, I'll just read through things which have come in the chat box. Raji says, I think I have many things, but not sure if I'm happy and satisfied with them. And Denise says, to have material object is to possess, but you can't take them with you. I have a soul which I will take with me. And Mantra says, ownership of possessions. And then we also have Ilikas, I think, saying, I currently claim the insanity of my thoughts, but I don't want to keep them. And then Roshu says, I have peaceful mind when I control it. Those are the items in the chat.
Thanks, everybody. I feel better already. Such insight. One of the stories about possessions and what they mean to us comes about someone who's sitting in an apartment in San Francisco, and there's a thoroughfare outside his house, and he had parked his car there, and then he hears a crashing sound. And triangulating the sound, he thinks, oh, that was my car. That's right where I parked it. So he runs to the window and looks out, and he notices that his heart is palpitating, he's perspiring, and his breath is heaving. He remembers, oh, I didn't renew my insurance. And then as soon as he peers out the window, he notices it wasn't his car, but it was his neighbor's car. And then suddenly his perspiring, his heavy breathing, his heart calms down and he's fine. Because he saw that it wasn't his car. So what does it mean, his car? And what does it mean, his neighbor's car? They're both cars. They're both made out of metal and glass and who knows what else. And this is a principle in this world that Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad-gītā, that when I look at things and I think these are my things, and of course there is a practicality in keeping some things to keep oneself alive. But the point is the attitude, our attitude towards them. If I say, oh, that's my car, then suddenly it's a deep problem for me. Of course, I have responsibility to use it properly and take care of it, but then I'm also attached to it. And that changes my sense of the item itself. It's part of me. You might even have sometime been bumped in your car and then you report it and say somebody hit me. Well, they didn't exactly hit you, but they hit your car. Because as soon as I become attached to things as mine, then they stick to me, they become a problem. So akiñcana, going back to the slide, and the principle of akiñcana doesn't mean to renounce the world in the sense of I won't touch anything. And some people in the past have renounced everything, including speaking. I won't talk, I won't do anything. I'll just stay in one place and not move, and I'll be completely renounced. But what it means is to change our perspective of things themselves. I consider them as paraphernalia to be used in service. And as Rajiv was pointing out, I have a sense of my relationship with them changes because, for instance, as he said, Rajiv, working with a team, well, it's my team to serve. It's not my team and to dominate, or I belong to this team and it's my main identity. We see this in sporting, that sometimes people become attached to a team because it's from their city. I've seen people wear a hat from their sports team from their city. And if somebody says something about their team, then a fight might break out. These things happen all the time. If you're wearing the wrong hat at a game where the home team has a different kind of hat, then people might become hostile towards you because you're different. And people also considering their body to be themselves, identify with a particular country, race, gender, and so forth, and say, this is what I am. And in the Bhagavad-gītā, Krishna says, an enlightened person notices that every body in this world is an external feature, just like a car. So just as we say my car, we say my body, but we're not our bodies. And the person in akiñcana consciousness realizes that I came into the world with nothing. I'm going to leave it with nothing. And while I'm here, there's just paraphernalia to be used for a higher purpose. And this is one of the themes of the Bhagavad-gītā. When you use everything, including your body and your mind, for service to the Supreme, then you don't become entangled in the world. And therefore, there's no sense of suffering because you're not holding on to it. Although you use it and you protect it and you're dutiful, you still have a different relationship with it. And that's called akiñcana. And that sense of, I don't have anything. It's not mine. I'm just using it. Let's try the next slide. One of the principles, the less you claim to have or to know, the more you're open to learn. And the more grateful you are for what you get. There's a way in which entitlement, thinking that I deserve more, leads to disappointment to the degree we have this sense of entitlement. And also in learning, one may see the more I know, the more I know I don't know. And oftentimes people, including myself, when I'm hearing some valuable information or getting a lesson from someone, I may think, my unruly mind may say, oh, I already know that. And one of my colleagues who speaks all around the world says, there's 4 words that block all learning. Should I say what they are? I'm going to write them in the chat. There they are. I already know that. So how can you receive more knowledge if you already know something? I know that. I know that. And oftentimes, due to a sense of knowing more than other people, we can't listen to what other people say because my mind's saying, I already know that, I already know that, I already know that. I know more than this person. When they stop talking, then I'm going to say something more valuable. So, of course, we want to listen to those who are most qualified to teach us something. But in the Bhagavad-gītā, Kṛṣṇa talks about this principle of knowledge. When you're akiñcana and you come as an empty slate, then you can take in so much. Even if somebody is not as qualified as you, you might hear something from them that will edify you. In the Gita, Kṛṣṇa says that there are 3 ways you should approach somebody teaching you knowledge. One is that you should be open to hear. It's called pranipat. And the other one is that you should be in a mood of service, that somebody's giving me something, I should give them service, and you should also be ready to ask questions that are relevant so you can get more out of that person. And all this takes place when you are willing to be akiñcana, said the golden monk and Queen Kunti. You can learn so much when you claim to know nothing. In fact, one of the students of the monk who I'm speaking of, Krishna Chaitanya, who was named Sanatan, he knew 7 languages. He had worked as a prime minister, and he wanted to enter into the same kind of lifestyle as the golden monk. There were very rare occasions when the golden monk allowed people to do that. He told people mostly to stay in their position, but this was a different case. And this person joined him and he wanted to learn from the golden monk. And the first thing he said to him is, please tell me who I am. He started with the question. People say I'm highly learned and I'm so foolish, he said, I believe them. So please tell me first, who am I? Blank slate, starting from the beginning, not assuming you know anything, especially when you approach a qualified teacher. So it goes towards our relationship with all things in the world, and our ability to grow is this sense of akiñcana. I don't have anything. I'm open. That way anything can flow in. Have you ever been in a situation where you were listening to someone and you thought, I already know that, and therefore you weren't able to hear what the person said? Or on the opposite side, have you ever been in a situation where you tolerated the sense of, oh, I know more than this person, and you learned a lesson from somebody who you thought couldn't teach you anything? Our phone lines are open for comments. Our operators are standing by to take your call. You can unmute and relate anything in that regard, or you can type something in the chat box. I've had experiences where I had said I couldn't judge who the person was till they started speaking. Oh, look, SG said something.
SG said, when you say that don't know enough, it may affect one's confidence at work. How much is enough confidence for something you know?
Well, that's a good question. And the principles of akiñcana don't mean that one should act foolishly. It means that one should consider oneself open to learning more. And that came up with the golden monk, or Krishna Chaitanya himself, when he met his teacher. His teacher said, you should always consider yourself a fool. At the same time, you should use whatever you've learned dutifully and not act like a fool, he said. And the confidence that one can gain in one's life has more to do with one's realization. When you know something, when you've prepared and you've listened carefully to your teachers, then there's a natural sense that you know how to do it. It comes to your mind like magic because you've done it before, you've listened carefully, you've prepared. And instead of becoming conceited that, well, I know more than others, the akiñcana principle then says, yeah, you should be confident that you were given something as a gift. Part of the bounteous nature of the universe is that we get intelligence when we prepare ourselves for it. This is one of the principles in the Bhagavad-gītā that Krishna says, if you're open and sincere, then there's knowledge that pours into your heart. It's not just academic, but there's also a higher intelligence in the universe. I mean, how are animals going on with such confidence? I see them doing miraculous stunts all the time. Watching the birds, I was just up in Northern California. I am in Northern California, but I went further north and I was observing nature and I was watching birds during a windy day. And they were doing all kinds of stunts against the wind. And they didn't go to flying school. They just naturally have that. And also along a creek where it was very calm and peaceful, I saw these spiders who had constructed numerous spider webs. How did they have the confidence that here's the right tree or bush to put it in and how they even know how to do it? There's a natural flow of knowledge that comes into our heart besides just gleaning academic knowledge. And if we're humble and appreciate that I'm getting this empowerment from a higher source and don't take it for granted that I'm smarter than other people, then that's noticeable. So it's not mutually exclusive. You can have confidence in yourself and what you know, because you know what you know, and it's really self-luminous. And at the same time, you can be appreciative that it's a gift. It can also be taken back as well. People who are highly learned sometimes forget important things at key times, and they get a dose of humility. If you've ever had that happen when I know everything and and then also, oh yeah, you said the wrong thing. That's possible also. JM, what else is there?
A few more things going both in the chat as well as in Facebook. I want to just acknowledge the Facebook user, Bhaktin Rafaela. She says, something I always wanted to keep since my early childhood was and is my awareness. I was not even reading yet, but I was trying to plan how to keep my consciousness after death and go on, possibly with or towards my inner little friend guide. I was refusing the concept of death as not applicable to my being after hearing my grandfather passed away and thought it was impossible that he was really in that coffin. To me, it was inconceivable.
Yeah, the intelligence and the mind can be informed about the workings of the world. This is one of the benefits of spiritual practice, is to be aware of the fact that even though the body's changing, I don't change. And even when somebody leaves their body, it's not the end. It's a common principle, is this idea of continuance, that we're just passing through this lifetime. And that lends to the principle of akiñcana also quite nicely, because if we're just passing through while we're here, what is the purpose? If one gives emphasis to how much one can gather, and then suddenly it's taken away, you can think, oh, I'm finished. In fact, that's happened in history when people had accumulated a lot of money, for instance, and then by some event it was diminished. It happened to my grandfather. Then there's a sense of, oh, I'm finished, but we're never finished, and whatever we suppose we have comes and goes in this world. And so having the sense of akiñcana, it can calm you in times of loss or gain. As Kṛṣṇa says in the Bhagavad-gītā, an enlightened person is not disturbed by loss or gain. Because in gain, it can go to one's head. We notice that some people who have gained a lot in their life, sometimes when they get to a position of having much more than they ever thought they would, they realize, oh, I'm still not satisfied. And it can actually become such a burden that people become disturbed and they take to drinking alcohol and all kinds of other things. So better to be in one's natural, clear position, which is to be aware of the fact that I'm passing through this lifetime, whatever possessions I have now, including this body, are only temporary and they can be used for a higher purpose. JM, something else came in.
Yeah, there are a few more. One is Elikas, I think he says, or she says, traveling the world can open your eyes and mind to so many things. And then J. Provence says, it's okay to know, but don't feel you know it all. And then Raji says, there's a concept of growth mindset that aligns with this to be open to learn. And then James says, I know is equal to ego. I don't know is equal to humility. Our society or humanity seems full of ego, holding to what they think they know. Knowledge without application is ego. Knowledge with proper application is wisdom. It's not what you don't know, but just so much that.
It's not that you don't know.
Sorry, it's not.
You don't, but just so much that isn't so. Thanks, James.
And then, Manu, do you want to say what you wrote?
Yeah, sure. So I was just attending a conference of successful leaders, and similar to what we discussed, like, I mean, there are a lot of takeaways, but one takeaway that stuck to me was from one female leader who got very rapid career growth, and she mentioned that the secret was that she always stayed humble and she always was eager to learn from her co-workers, successful peers, and that's how in very few years, she was at she actually got a lot of yes.
That's such a nice principle. That's also part of akiñcana is humility. And in one part of the Bhagavad-gītā, which is in the 13th chapter, starting with the 8th verse, there are 20 elements that open us up to knowing ourselves and the universe. 20. We're just starting with one here, which is akiñcana, which is really the parallel with the first principle in the verse I'm mentioning, which is humility. Amanitvam. Aman means like you're not full of yourself thinking you know everything. Amanitvan, that's your quality. And if you have that quality, then you're a receiver. So the theme of this program is about, it's counterintuitive. One may think the more I'm dominant, the more I use my knowledge to conquer others and to conquer nature, I figure out how to drill down and find the secrets of nature, which remain elusive for such a person. But when I'm humble, there's a way that intelligence comes into the heart. And when I'm aware of the fact that it's bountiful and it's something given as a gift, like we say the gifts of nature and so forth, that's coming from intelligence. And that's a universal principle, spiritual principle, to be aware of the bounty of the world, to be aware of its intentional design and so forth, and then to be grateful for it. And that can be absorbed in a humble heart. In the On Walden Pond, the author talks about how when you slow down and you look at the world for what it is and how it's moving, how well organized it is, you have a natural sense of intelligence behind it, and you can feel extremely grateful for it. And if you try to, the opposite of humility, try to dominate and think that you're condescending on nature or condescending on other people, it's very difficult to perceive that. Let's see, there's one more, and then I'll go back to the slides.
Provence says, it feels good to be humble. It's much easier, it seems, it's natural.
It does, doesn't it? And a disclaimer, because this often comes up. When you're humble, it doesn't mean you become a doormat for others to bully you or take advantage of you. Humility means to admit that you're not the doer. When you get intelligence and you say, well, this is my intellectual property, well, maybe to some degree, but the fact is that it came to you also. It's not that you're necessarily better than anybody else. It's just that you've received some gift and you can keep it for some time. And you see that everything that you have is a gift that's coming from a higher source. That's true humility. And it doesn't mean then that you have to, in somebody who's humble, has to give way even intellectually to other people. If they have a point to make, they'll make it, but they make it humbly because they don't consider that, oh, this is my intellectual property. They see that it's coming from a higher source and they're presenting it. And whatever gifts they have in their life, they see, oh, I've been given a certain quota and it will be taken away at some time too. So they remain humble and they don't think, I'm so smart. I have more than everybody else. They must be losers. So it does feel better to be humble. What a nice observation. Couple more slides, JM. Continuing the conversation on receptivity, we go to the Ayurveda. Ayur means lifespan. There's a branch of knowledge about health and how to expand your lifespan. Big topic these days. The ancient wisdom literatures also talked about how to be in harmony with your body and mind. And one of the principles is that a strong appetite means good health. Nowadays, there's a lot about the digestion and how it affects all the other parts of your body. How is the biological activity balanced in your stomach and so forth? And so this sense of emptiness in general, using this Ayurvedic principle as a metaphor for our lives, the more hunger we have, the more appetite we have, is dependent on how we are akiñcana. When we think we know everything, then of course we can't absorb it and we can't digest it either. That's another point. When we get some gift, you can't take it because you're not hungry for it. And I think in the next slide or a subsequent one, we can move to, we talk about, go back because I'm not sure exactly where it is. Hold on. Entitlement. Yeah, I'll just talk about that now. There's a way in which one can spoil oneself, one could spoil one's children. If you give them a sense of entitlement, if you've ever seen a spoiled child, whatever they get so much and they don't have appreciation for it, they can't appreciate the gift. It's like, oh, is that it? That's all you're going to give me? That's not enough. And if one spoils one's own mind or spoils one's appetite for the world and thinking that I'm entitled, I deserve that anyway. Don't you know who I am? Have you ever heard that phrase? Like, don't you know who I am? If one spoils oneself, then your appetite, your digestion are not effective and you can't receive from the world. You can't get knowledge, you can't get spiritual knowledge. And what's the use of getting so many things if you can't digest it anyway? Because you're so full already of yourself that when you get it, then you just think, oh, I deserved more. And there's no end to that. That's one of the points in the Bhagavad-gītā Kṛṣṇa makes, that this kind of mentality where I deserve more, I deserve more. Then when you get anything, then it's not enough. Too much is not enough. And that's a kind of death to the world, which is full of gifts that are coming at every second. Our very breath is a gift. In fact, the way we're being maintained at every moment is a real miracle. And Einstein made some statement about that. You can see the world as ordinary. You can see every second and every event as a miracle. There's not one particle or moment that things are enacted the same way they were ever before. Everything's unique. And to be able to be aware of that, have that spiritual perspective, that there's a heartbeat to the universe, and that there's an intelligence behind it, and that it's reciprocating with me. The subtleties of that are so profound, and they're lost in a society where people think they're entitled, or they think that just gaining possessions is the way to be happy. And actually, the way the wisdom literatures describe it is, if you don't have this proper mentality of being akiñcana, then you put yourself inside a cocoon. All the possessions, they smother you and you can't get out. Let's look at another slide. So this is another emotion, is helplessness. And this is also implied by the queen, Kunti, who talked about akiñcana, the principle of akiñcana. Embrace helplessness. We may make a mental construct to say, oh, I'm protected by my money, or I'm protected by my government, or I'm protected by my family, or I'm protected by my very body. But none of these things are guaranteed. If you really take time as a mental exercise to consider how helpless you are, you'll realize that we're hanging by a thread at every second here in this world. Truly, and every second is a blessing that we're able to stay here in this body, and we can't take it for granted at all. And in that helplessness, Kunti says, then we actually have this sense of calling out for help. When we remember how tenuous life is, for instance, you may live with somebody and you have a relationship that's very dear to you, but then you may take the person for granted. Possible? Just giving an ordinary example that everyone could relate to. Maybe you live with somebody and they mean so much to you, but then you just take them for granted. It's like, okay, I'm going to the store, bye. That could be the last time you say goodbye. Happens all the time. So what's the difference in vision of the world when you're akiñcana? You remember your tenuous situation, which means the cliche, hanging by a thread. I have a friend who's in management. Whenever I see him, we have this joke. I say, how things going? He says, I'm hanging by a thread. And the other one is, I'm running scared. And, if we can cultivate this, not that we become neurotic about it, but if we become aware of it, that I am helpless, how much more compassion will we have for other people? We'll forgive the minor trespasses of other people because, look, we're just passing through. We don't have time to waste. And also, in a beseeching heart, calling out for help. This is one of the points that of receptivity. The universe is very responsive. That's not a strong enough word. I'll just say it plainly. The universe is responsive because there's intelligence behind it. And there's a responsiveness to it that we can notice. And this is what real spiritual practice is to note for yourself very directly that there's a response to your call for help. It's just most people don't call for help because they say, don't worry, my money will cover it, or I'll be protected by the police force, or whatever you may think. There is no ultimate refuge in this world. And if you have that sense of helplessness, paradoxically, you feel safer. Because if you don't, if you call out for help from those who can't ultimately help you, then you have cognitive dissonance because you know they're not going to be able to do it. And you still feel helpless. Okay, last slide, I think. That's where we're talking about expectation, which has a lot to do with entitlement. But it is a different concept, expectations. Whatever you expect to happen or whatever you expect that you deserve, it inevitably leads to disappointment. So what if you did a little experiment for the rest of the day or the rest of the week or maybe a month? Don't expect anything. How would your life be different if you didn't expect anything? You didn't build it up in your mind that I deserve this or I deserve that or I expect this to happen. You take every moment as it is. Whatever comes, you're right there. You're appreciating what you have right now, but you don't expect anything more. You'll actually be in a state of bliss because you'll be appreciating that I don't deserve anything. I'm akiñcana. Whatever comes to me is an absolute blessing that's coming down to me from higher source. This is spirituality 101. So these principles we could take with us, and they're to be inculcated and practiced as per the ancient wisdom literatures. And anyone who applies these, you'll notice a difference in your environment right away. You'll notice a difference in the way people respond to you. You'll notice a difference in your consciousness by applying the principle of akiñcana. I don't have anything. Everything is paraphernalia to be used. I don't expect that I'll get anything more. Whatever I have now, that's sufficient. And if you notice the difference in applying the principles of Golden Monk, so many thousands of people followed him because they realized when he spoke, this is really true. This is where happiness comes from, not from accumulation, but from becoming aware of the beauty of reality. And that can only be experienced from the soul level. And that can be opened up for us through the principles that we mentioned today, as per the teachings of the Golden Monk and Queen Kunti. And that reminds me of the principle of gratitude, just thanking everyone for everything. I was talking to a friend today about how you should take time to appreciate people whenever you see them doing something that's noteworthy. What a life that is, huh? And it when he spoke about that, it made me think of these yogis who I've met in the Himalayas who live in caves. They have very little, they concentrate within, but when they come out and they see others, especially their colleagues, who sometimes also come out in their caves and there's a serendipitous meeting, they become very appreciative and they raise their hands high in the air and they have this phrase they call out. It's universal, Hari Bol. It's just an encouragement. Keep the transcendental vibration going because that's the real work of life, is the inner work. So maybe we should try it. I think I'm going to do it. You want to do it? Hari Bol.
Yes.
Haribol!
Haribol!
Krishna
Haribol!
Himalayas. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everybody.